Hey, friend. Happy Wednesday. So excited you could join us for another session of Coffee with Kim, where we gather every single week to learn and trade tips and tricks and best kept secrets together. Now, you know that usually we bring a friend with us to these coffee meetings, but this session is a little different. This session is just me and you and all of our friends. So if you haven't already, say hi in the chat. If you're listening to this later on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or your favorite podcast network, don't worry. There is always time for you to join into the fun by DMing me or sending me messages of your questions or comments or tips later on. We don't want to leave anybody out, especially if you got good tips, because God knows I want them. So it is so good to see everybody. Big hi to Giacomo and Jeff and Andrew and Jessica. Man, I love it. We're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm really looking forward to this session because I think it covers a topic that I get lots and lots and lots of notes and questions about, and that is public speaking. It freaks everybody out. It's one of the things that just, I feel like people are always being like, how do you do this? Or how did you do this pitch? Or what about this presentation? Or how do you get these clients? Or how did you get on Shark Tank? I feel like I just get lots and lots of questions about what it takes to do big presentations, do big pitches, do big public speaking events. And so I thought we'd have an entire session tackling all of my best tips and tricks, and also having you share your best tips and tricks when it comes to public speaking. Most of the time, when you join workshops like this or traditional workshops, you hear from that person and then maybe you ask a question at the end and maybe you don't. This is going to be a little different because this is interactive. If you have a question, if you have a thought, if you had a comment, type it in. Don't keep it to yourself. Sharing is caring. So I want to know what is coming up for you because we got to add your voice to the mix. We're all in this coffee session together. So without further ado, I know Sally and James and everybody and Michelle is super busy today. So let's cram it in. Let's dive right in. I love a good agenda. Maybe you do as well. It's the type A person in me. So here is the agenda and outline of what we are going to tackle today. We are going to kick it off with meeting each other. Hi, I'm Kim. It's so nice to meet you. So boom, done. We did that. Check. We are going to go into the 3 parts of public speaking. And I like breaking it down this way for a lot of different reasons. But the main one being is I feel like sometimes when people think about public speaking, they just think about it as one thing, and it's actually not. So I like breaking it up into these 3 parts. We're going to go into each one. Pre-speaking, kind of what are some musts that you need to be doing when you're thinking about speaking or doing a presentation. We're going to go over those. Kind of my best kept speaking secrets that when you're on stage or when you're at the top of the boardroom or when you're on that important Zoom, things that you need to do and hit and accomplish. And then last but not least, some sort of post-speaking best practices that, again, I've earned my stripes from a lot of mistakes that I've made in the past, and they're mistakes that I don't want you to make. So we're going to go over those as well. First up, I just want to get a little temperature check in the room, but what is some advice that you have heard in the past when it comes to public speaking? Because I feel like that is just a really good way to kick it off about what people have heard or seen in the space. I also want to say a special hello to Laura because it's her first Coffee with Kim and we love it. And we hope that you join us every single week. So welcome, Laura. It's so nice to meet you. Okay, so I'm really excited to hear what advice you've heard about public speaking in the past, because I just feel like there's a lot of advice out there on Instagram and TikTok, and there's books and there's podcasts, and there's all sorts of things about the do's and the don'ts when it comes to public speaking. So Valerie says one of the things that she's heard a lot of is know your topic. That is true. I could not agree more with that. Or Jennifer is saying to use a storytelling-like approach. Again, a great one. People remember stories, not necessarily facts or diagrams or graphs that you're going to put up in a presentation or a pitch. Rebecca says, nobody cares about you. They only care about the content and the learning. That is so true. So nobody is leaving that session going, man, I wish she had straightened her hair. It looked a little frizzy. No one's paying attention to your frizzy hair. No one is paying attention to that. They are focused on your content. Cynthia hit the nail on the head. Picture everyone in the audience with their underwear. Yes, that is a very common one. Joanne is saying avoid death by PowerPoint. So true. Anybody who has listened to any sort of large presentation knows PowerPoints can get really boring by slide 25. Sally is saying that good advice, kind of imagining your audience naked, is just not that helpful. And honestly, I could not agree more. I think it is actually some of the worst advice you could ever get. It's cringy. It's weird. I don't want to envision anybody naked, especially if you're presenting to like your boss or an important client or a room full of strangers. I don't want to start picturing a room full of strangers in their drawers. It's a no from me. So I don't know if that's a no from you too, but just that whole like envision people naked, just weird. Not sure where that came from, but I'm not really into it. And it sounds like Gil is not really into it either. So I'm glad that you're with me on that, Gil, because it's not a thing for me. So we are not going to do that. We are not going to picture anybody naked. I actually don't think that you should really envision anything. And I think what really takes away the nerves isn't necessarily picturing the audience in some silly outfit or their underwear or anything like that. I think if you really want to get rid of the nerves when it comes to public speaking, what helps the most is being prepared. Nothing will get rid of nerves more than being prepared. It's like if you're nervous about a pop quiz when you were in high school or college, you were not nervous if you had studied for the test. If you had studied for the test, you're like, all right, this pop quiz is going to be hard. But you know what? I studied, I read the book, I knew the assignment, and we're going to go in and do the best we can. So public speaking is the same way. It's really about being prepared, staying prepared. So let's go into these 3 different stages of public speaking, because I think that this is really going to help you narrow down where you can improve and where maybe you're getting caught up when it comes to public speaking and just where you're feeling nervous or awkward or weird. So first and foremost, I want to go over a big red flag that I see all the time when it comes to kind of before people speak. I think people focus too much on the actual presentation. I want to focus on a little bit before that. So let's hit rewind a little bit. And before the big presentation or before the big pitch, what are some red flags, some big no-nos that you need to stay away from? And again, I've earned my stripes with this. Trust me, I know, I've done it. So here is the first one we really want to hone in on. Big red flag is morning decisions. People wait. It boggles my mind. I don't know why, but people love to wait until the day of their event to start making decisions. This is the biggest red flag. You want to make all decisions, and I do mean all decisions, before the morning of the event. You want to have 0 decisions to make on the morning of the event. That means, and when I say everything, most importantly, your outfit. I know it sounds silly. You think, oh my gosh, I don't know. I put on a blouse, I put on some trousers, I head out the door. No. We pick out our outfit way before the morning of the event. Maybe it's 2 days before, maybe it's 3 days before. No decisions the morning of the event. You have your outfit laid out, you wake up, you get your caffeine, whatever that might be, you get in your outfit, you are out the door. You don't have to make any decisions standing in front of your closet panicking because you don't know what to wear. Next up, big red flag, travel routes and options. This is another huge mistake and stressor that I see people make when it comes to big presentations. So, I actually, a few weeks ago, I was meeting a friend here in Austin, and they had a big presentation later that day. And they were talking about, oh yeah, I'm going to leave for this presentation around 3:30. The presentation starts at 4. It's only a few miles away. That gives me plenty of time, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of glazed over it. And I went, whoa, 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 stop right there. You're not from Austin. I live here. Let me assure you that specific highway that you're going to try to take by 3:30 is almost gridlocked. So anybody in a busy city, whether that's New York or LA or London or New Delhi, any big city knows that there are certain times of day where a road that normally you'd be able to go 3 miles on in, I don't know, 10 minutes or something like that, all of a sudden turns into 30 minutes to go those 3 miles because the road is just totally gridlocked. And luckily, I was having breakfast with my friend and I said, whoa, you're leaving a half hour. That is not enough time. You need to leave yourself 45 minutes to an hour. I'd rather you get there early, get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, like have some time, as opposed to sitting in traffic, freaking out, frantically trying to text, I'll be there soon. I'll be there in 5 minutes. No, 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 no. Think about travel routes. I encourage anyone who hasn't used this feature, Google and Waze both have features where you can put in the time that you want to get somewhere. And based on historical traffic data, it will say, oh, you're trying to reach downtown LA at 4:30. Yeah, that's going to take you 55 minutes. But if you want to go 5 hours later, it'll only take you 30 minutes. So it gives you that time frame based on that traffic data. That is going to be huge. The day of the event, we do not want you freaking out about being stuck in traffic, not knowing how to get there. Or I say different routes because, again, if you are in a city and you plan on taking public transportation, there were plenty of times with me in New York where I thought, oh, no problem. I'm just going to grab the F train and head uptown, not realizing that the F train is under construction and not running express on certain days. So again, whether you are taking a car, whether you're taking the subway, however you are getting to this presentation or this meeting, look into it beforehand. There could be road delays. There could be road closures. There could be congestion. You do not want to be making these decisions the morning of. Trust me, it's going to stress you out. Liz is bringing up a great point that Waze will even have a feature that push notifies you when you should leave. Again, these are great features to keep in place because nothing will make you more nervous than thinking you are going to be late to a big presentation or a big meeting. And Sally even said that these Google predictions have been working great for her when it comes to making these meetings on time. So again, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to look into both your outfit and your travel routes way beforehand. Do not wait till the last minute on that. It's just a bad idea. The less decisions that you have, the better. It is just, trust me, I've done it. You kind of want to wake up and almost be like a zombie. Like you already know what you're going to eat. You already know how you're going to get there. You already know what you're going to wear. So it is just kind of like a zombie or like a robot. Like you are just going through the decisions that you've already made. There's no question. You're just getting up and doing it. I love this point that Gil is asking, which is even when you're prepared, and even if it is a familiar audience, why do we still get nervous? And I actually think we can try to reframe it in our minds that a lot of times we get nervous because we actually care. So think about something that you don't really care about. You're going to school drop off and you don't really care what the other parents are wearing or what you're wearing. Yeah. So you go to school drop off in sweatpants because you're like, I don't care what these people think and I don't care what they think about me. So I'm just going to go in my sweatpants. I think when you get nervous, so using that same example, if you're really nervous about what the teachers thought of you or what other parents thought of you, you might not show up to school drop off in your sweatpants. You might be like, oh, okay, like let me put on a proper pair of pants with buttons so that I have on jeans. And so in that example, you care so that you're nervous. So I think a lot of times we think about nerves with public speaking and presentations as a bad thing. And I think sometimes it's a reframe that it can actually be a good thing. It means that we care about that client, or we care about that audience, or we care about that presentation. We want to do a good job. We don't want it to just completely flop. So I think that that's important to kind of reframe in our minds, even if it's a familiar audience, even if we really know the material, we are probably a little bit nervous because we care and we want to do a good job. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I want to dive a little deeper into this morning of decision when it comes to outfits. I myself have had disastrous consequences when I decide not to put on an outfit. I will give you two quick stories that I think will process the point really well for you. I had a big presentation and didn't really think about it. Got dressed the morning of, got about halfway to that presentation before I realized that the blazer that I was wearing had a little stain on it that I had not noticed before. Too late. We're already halfway to the meeting. I'm going into the meeting with a stained blazer. It I was so focused on it. And again, it was super small. I'm sure nobody noticed but me. If they did notice, they were very nice and didn't say like, "Hey, it looks like you spilled chocolate on yourself, you messy, messy girl." So nobody said anything. But again, I was so focused on it that it just made me extra nervous. And nobody wants to be extra nervous. We want to be less nervous, not extra nervous. So one of the reasons I say to do the outfit stuff the day before is to do those little checks. Like maybe you thought it was clean, but that last stain just didn't totally get removed. That is huge. The second reason that I say this is there are times, listen, times are changing. Our bodies are always changing. There are times where you think you feel really confident in that shirt, or you think you feel really confident in that dress. And then you try it on, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, this is a little tight. I don't remember it being this tight around my arms, or I don't remember it being this loose. Or now that I'm looking at this with my short hair and my hair is not down my chest, it's actually a little see-through now that I'm looking at it. And I don't know if I want to present on Zoom with kind of a see-through shirt. That's not going to be good. So again, when you're thinking about your outfit, really think about trying it on, inspecting it. Do we like it? Do we feel good in it? Is it something that we feel like we're going to feel really confident in? Another thing when it comes to outfits, and I think it's important to note this here, is that it really matters if you are going to be in person or you're going to be on the screen. So again, when you're thinking about your outfits, in-person outfits are going to be different than on-screen outfits. Why do I say this? Again, I've been on Shark Tank. I've been on Fox News. I've been on NBC. I've been on the Today Show. I've been on numerous outlets, and anybody who works in the television business will tell you that if you are doing something on screen, which means like this, like on a Zoom or a webinar, anything digital, you must wear solid colors. Trust me, now that I've told you this, you are going to turn on any sort of news outlet and you will notice it is not a coinky dink that all of the newscasters are wearing solid outfits, solid tops. When you wear things like stripes, when you wear things like polka dots, the pixelation in our digital screen has a hard time with those. It might look a little blurry to some people, or it might look like, wow, there's too much stuff going on. Solid colors are a must if you're going to be doing anything digital. It's sort of a rule of thumb. Honestly, bright solid colors also work really well in person. It's helpful for people to zone in and see you. But again, you have a little more leeway in person than you do digitally. Don't ask me why. I don't make the digital screens. I didn't come up. It's just, that's how it goes. I also want to remind everybody that if you have questions as we're going, literally type them in so we can tackle them. I want to tackle this one from Sangeetha. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I think I'm pronouncing it right, but who knows? Do you prepare to answer questions before the actual speech? So glad you asked, because we are going to get into the actual speaking part right now. And I think when we're thinking about that actual speaking part and we're thinking about what are we going to talk about and what are we going to do, there are some red flags that we need to stay away from. But in terms of answering questions, I definitely think that you should have in your mind the answers to some most commonly asked questions. You know your presentation, you know your pitch, you know that people are going to have questions. For instance, I know in my business, one of the things that always comes up at the end of a big pitch or the end of a big presentation, or even when I was on Shark Tank, is sounds great. How much does it cost? Am I right? People want to know, yeah, that all sounds great. I love the rainbows. I love the unicorns. I love the sparkles. How much does it cost? So you know what some of those questions are going to be after a presentation. Maybe it's how much it costs. Maybe it's how long will this take? Maybe it's when can I hire you? When can we sign up for this? Have your answers ready to go for some of those commonly asked questions. You obviously cannot prepare for everything, nor would I expect you to, but it's helpful to at least know a little bit what you think people are going to ask about. I want to go over some red flags when it comes to speaking. I think it's helpful to go over these red flags because I feel like a lot of presentations give you like, this is what you should do. But I feel like a lot of what you should do, you already know. So I kind of want to give you all the things you shouldn't do, like, because I've done it and I know you shouldn't do it because I have had horrible results with it. So feel free to copy my homework on this one because I don't want you to make these mistakes. They're painful. I don't like them. They were not fun. They will not be fun for you either. The first one, and I think this one is fun, and that's why I wanted to make it a little more interactive. What do you think distracts audiences the most? So when you are up there doing a presentation, when you are up there on screen in a Zoom meeting, what do you think is the most distracting for your audience, for the people that are listening to your pitch, to your presentation, to what it is that you are talking about? What is the most distracting? Jeff is saying all of those filler sort of sounds, like when people go, or filler words. So, or filler sounds, because I guess I don't know if or is even a word. So Laura is saying the same thing when people say like or right or Melissa is saying a cell phone ringing. I mean, yes, digital distractions are very much a real thing. I'm glad that Brendan brought up fidgeting. That is also definitely a distraction when it comes to audience members who are trying to pay attention to you and you're, twirling your hair, or you're, scratching your head, or you're, fussing with your blazer or the jacket that you're wearing. Jennifer is saying strange gestures or overly expressive gestures. Again, that sort of fidgeting when people are doing things over and over and over. And I love that Carlos said, go Gators. I don't know if that's a distraction. It's not for me. Go Gators. I will take an audience shouting that any day of the week. But I'm glad Leslie brought up this point of talking like a zombie. I love this for a lot of reasons because what actually distracts people the most. And again, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm also speaking as someone who has run events and seen a lot of speakers and seen a lot of those yummy feedback sheets after a conference where people say like, what are some good things this person did? And what are some bad things that this person did? The number one thing that I see on the bad list where people are complaining in a conference or in a symposium or in a seminar, the thing that people complain about the most is fast talking. People hate, and I do mean hate because I've seen the comment box, they really do not like it, people who are fast talkers. They will say things like, man, I loved, XYZ's presentation, but it was like drinking from a fire hose. If anybody has heard that analogy before, because obviously drinking from a fire hose is, the water is coming a mile a minute. So you're just sort of left confused and like, oh my gosh, they're going too fast. And this is common, right? We see this a lot, and it's common for a lot of reasons, one of which being your brain perceives time as passing very slowly. So if you are nervous, if you are excited, if you are ready to give this presentation, that means that you are moving a mile a minute. And so you are speaking fast to compensate for the excitement that you have, for the nerves that you have. And you're also speaking quickly because you already know the material. It's not a new story to you. So I love to use this example because I think we can all relate to it. If you have ever been, let's say you're grabbing lunch with a friend, you and a friend are going to lunch, and they're trying to tell you about a story that just happened with their boss. And it's sort of like drama filled. And you're at lunch and they're like, okay. And so then my boss was like, da, 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 da. And then my vice president said, da, 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 da. You might go, wait, back up. Like, what did your boss say? Wait a minute. Why would your boss say that? So you're interrupting your friend because you're kind of like, wait. Your friend is telling the story very quickly because obviously they just experienced it. Their boss is being rude, or the vice president was mean to them, or, whatever gossip or drama or hot tea that they have just witnessed. So they're going a mile a minute, but you're able in the lunch to kind of stop your friend, like, wait, back up. What did they say? Or wait, back up. How did you react to that? But in a presentation, obviously, or in a Zoom meeting or in a seminar, you can't necessarily stop that person. You can't raise your hand and be like, excuse me, Mr. Keynote Speaker, I'm going to need you to rewind a little bit and repeat that because you're going too fast. That is, you can't do that. So to Liz's point, especially if you are used to talking very fast. So in this case, Liz is like, I'm Italian. Like, I talk fast. It's a thing. You have to be really cognizant of this. So unfortunately, it's sort of a double-edged sword because, again, one, when we're nervous, which happens during a presentation or a pitch or public speaking, we're more likely to talk really fast because we also kind of want to get it over with because we are really nervous. But again, if you are, also predisposed to talking really fast, that's sort of like the 1-2 punch, you are going to have to try more than anyone to slow down as much as possible. So I love this point by Giacomo that if you talk too fast and, it's hard to memorize a full script, it's really hard to own the topic. So again, if you know your material, if you've memorized everything for the presentation, if you know your material and inside and out, you can kind of really say, okay, let me slow down. Let me just, figure out the next thing that I'm going to say. So I'm glad that Cynthia's like, yes, that is me. I just want to get the public speaking over with. So I speak a mile a minute. But again, I've seen these feedback cards. I have been a public speaker, and trust me, it is mortifying when you get back these comment cards and people are like, she talked too fast. Loved her stuff. She talked too fast. Couldn't get that last point because she went through the slides too quickly. And you're just sitting there like, Like they couldn't even pay attention to the awesome material because I went through it too quickly. So a lot of times what I tell people is to study who you like. I think that this is really important. It's something that I myself have done numerous times, is finding a handful of people. It doesn't have to be 10 people. I'm talking like 3 people, 4 people, that you really like the way that they come across and speak. Could be on social media, could be on a TED Talk, could be, in a webinar, could be in a live like this one. Find someone, figure out who that person is, and really study them, like watch their content, not necessarily for the content, almost like throw that out the window, but pay attention to the pace in which they are speaking. Pay attention to how often they are pausing. Pay attention to how much time they're giving the audience to react. Again, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make in a presentation or a pitch, and again, I get it, we're nervous, so this happens, is people will get in front of an audience and they will say something like, okay, everybody, raise your hand if you're familiar with whatever. Let's say it's a computer conference. Raise your hand if you're familiar with SaaS software. And before people can even process the question of like, am I familiar with SaaS software? Oh, yes, I am. Okay, let me raise my hand. Before they can even do that process that I just said, the speaker already moved on. Again, because they're so nervous and they're moving so quickly that they're like, okay, good morning, everybody. Raise your hand if you're familiar with SaaS software. And again, because they're so nervous, they wait like a nanosecond, literally like half a second. And then they're like, well, if you're, familiar with SaaS software, that blah, blah, blah. And they just launch into their presentation. So they kind of miss that opportunity to get the audience engaged. And you got to give people a second. You can't just expect to ask a question and just instantaneously people are like, oh, yes, that's me. I know, SaaS computer software, hand raised. So literally like, wait a second, give people a second to take a breath and answer the question that you just asked so that they can process what it is they're saying. I love that Paulo also adds this point. I know that this is true for anybody who's delivering a sales pitch to a client or to a vendor. A lot of times people will interpret your fast talking as, oh, let's just glaze over the details. Nothing to see here. No big deal. I'm just trying to get to the sale. So again, really taking your time to kind of go slowly, encourage maybe any questions. I know not every setting is appropriate for questions. Again, if you're doing a keynote, you can't like have somebody raise their hand in a room of 200 people. But if you're doing a presentation with 20 people, maybe you do want to encourage people to raise their hand and say, hey, can you go over that slide again? Or, hey, can you dig a little deeper on that point? I think especially when it comes to selling or presentations where you're wanting the other person to agree with you, whether that's a big initiative or a product or service that you're trying to sell, like go slow, encourage questions. You want them to kind of finish the presentation going, yeah, that felt really satisfying. Like all my deep dives got answered. They really heard my question. They heard what I was going for. So again, I'll give you somebody who I studied because again, politics aside, I don't think anyone can deny that President Obama was a brilliant orator. I mean, the way that he was able to speak was amazing. And so I think watching him really helped me with my pauses. And everybody knows, I mean, you can watch really funny videos of the president on YouTube and stuff because he has a very distinct way of speaking. It's almost sing-songy. And he does really well with long pauses in his sentence. So that was a very bad Obama impression. But again, that's just an example. You can pick anybody that you want as a public speaker. It doesn't have to be somebody super famous. It can be somebody at your work or somebody that you know personally that you just think, hey, they're really good at these presentations, or hey, they're really good at public speaking. Like, let me study them and see what they're doing so I can copy their homework and make it my own. All right. Last but not least is that post speaking. So again, I want to go over the comments and the things that I see that are red flags. A lot of times, like, you know what to do, but it's that post speaking sort of what is the follow up. But really quick, before we move on to that, Cynthia has a great question, which is, do you have tips for avoiding brain freeze when you are prepared and you know the material? I think, again, what happens a lot of times during brain freeze is we're so nervous and we know the answer. It just takes us a second. So a lot of times what I will say to people is they will ask a question or they will have some sort of feedback, and I'll pause for a second. And I know it seems so uncomfortable to pause, but you can even say something like, hold on, I know the answer to this. Give me a second. Listen, usually the people you're talking to, like, they get it. Presenting is nerve-wracking. They will give you the grace. They will give you the moment to answer the question. And a lot of times I find, like, honesty is the best policy. Like, just simply saying to people, give me a second. I know the answer. It'll come to me. Or if you even want to buy yourself more time and say, give me a second. I know the answer. If it doesn't come to me by the end of the presentation, I'll follow up with you directly. So again, the person knows, okay, she knows the answer. It's just not coming to her at this exact moment. People get it. Audiences have a lot of grace and respect when you are doing something hard like public speaking. So just give it a second and people will understand and be like, okay, Cynthia's just trying to get through this. Like, let me give her a second. She knows this. Shelby brings up an awesome point here that a lot of times people will say, that's a great question, to buy themselves some time. Personally, it's like one of my pet peeves. I hate when people say, like, that's a really good question, because did everyone else's question suck? And like, that person just asked a really great question. No, obviously I know they're just trying to buy themselves time. So I think it's better, to show that honesty, to kind of show that vulnerable side, to say, like, hey, like, give me a second. I know the answer to this. Or again, you can even make it kind of funny. You can be like, brain fart. I know the answer to this. Give me a second. I know it'll come to me. You probably get a little laugh out of the brain fart, and people know you know it, and they move on. So that can really be helpful if you find yourself frozen in a situation. I want to talk about some post-speaking red flags that I see a lot that, again, are just like, cringe. Like, don't do this because it's a missed opportunity. So a lot of times when people are done speaking, they think, like, party time. The work is done. Pop the champagne. Kick my feet up. Presentation over. Zoom call over. Keynote over. Like, I'm done. Put a fork in it. To me, this is the biggest mistake that you could make, because just because your work is done doesn't mean that you are done. So I'm sure that you have watched at some point in your life a professional sporting event. I don't care if it's soccer. I don't care if it's football. I don't care if it's rugby. I don't care if it's lacrosse. I don't care if it's basketball. Whatever it is, you have probably witnessed a professional sporting event. Rest assured, there are coaches on those teams whose entire job is to study the game afterwards and then list out all the ways that their players can improve. So if you are here in the United States, you know that Tom Brady is a very famous football player here. You will know that he is notorious, even though he won countless Super Bowls, even though he was MVP of the NFL numerous years. He was notorious for, after every single game, asking the coaches for a tape recording of the game so that he could get out a literal pad of paper. This is not a joke. They have tons of photos. I just pulled some to put in this presentation, but there's tons of him sitting there with a pad of paper and a pen, writing notes I zigged and I should have zagged. I ran left, I should have run right. So a lot of times the biggest mistake I see people making is the presentation is done and then they're just like, wrap it up. That's a wrap. I'm done. No, so much opportunity here to really study what you have done and see where you can improve. So again, if you are doing a presentation digitally, of course you have to ask permission, but I have had no problem with people having me record. I'll say like, "Oh, I won't record your faces. I just want to record my face and, see how I do during this presentation." If I'm doing a presentation in person, a lot of times I will literally set up my little phone in the back on a video record. Again, I tell people ahead of time, "Hey, I'm recording this. I'm working on my public speaking." Again, people are rooting for you unless they're absolute monsters. So, they understand that you're trying to do better, you're trying to improve, you're trying to really level up. And so a lot of times rewashing yourself can be insanely helpful if you don't actually want to tape yourself in the meeting. That's fine. I get it. You're nervous. Your boss is there. There's a lot of people. You don't want to set up your phone. It's kind of awkward. Then I encourage you to give your presentation just to a bunch of stuffed animals or to your empty living room or to your couch and tape yourself doing that. So if you can't do it in a real life situation, do it just to your couch in your living room in your pajamas, but tape yourself, watch yourself so that you can really see back what you're doing. And when you're watching yourself, I want you to look for two things. I want you to rewatch your presentation or your keynote or your pitch with your sound on, but no visuals. So maybe you want to close your eyes and just listen to your presentation. And when you're just listening to your presentation and you're not seeing it, you can hear a little bit more what is your pacing like in the presentation. So, are you leaving pauses? Are you talking too fast? Really just kind of shut off the visuals and just listen to yourself. And trust me, I know it's so cringy to hear your own voice. I get it. I remember back in the day when we used to have actual phones in our homes and you would sometimes like hear your own voice, like, Kim's not home right now, leave a message. And it was always cringy when you would hear your own voice. I get it. I know it's going to be cringe. You have to work through it, but just listen to your own voice so you can hear for that pacing. You can hear if you're talking too quickly. That is going to be really extremely helpful. So again, listen with the sound on, but no visuals. And then I want you to flip flop. So then I want you to listen with the sound off and just the visuals. So again, turn the volume down on your phone as you're rewatching it, or turn the volume down on your computer as you're rewatching it, and just look at the visuals. So are you twirling your hair? Are you fidgeting with your jacket? Or maybe, because by the way, I've seen this too, and this is also kind of funny. You'll have people that don't move for the entire time and they don't blink and they don't move their head and they don't move their arms and they don't move their shoulders and they don't move their body. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is the most boring person to watch that I've ever seen. So you also want to watch it with just the visuals, and yeah, make sure you are using your hands a little bit and make sure you're kind of nodding along with the audience or nodding along to the slide, because if you are just, it reminds me of like when you were a little kid and you would play like red light, green light, and then you'd say like freeze. And like sometimes when you see people do presentations and just like nothing moves, you're like, that's weird. What's going on there? So again, listen with the sound off and just visuals. See if you have any weird tics. See if you are, acting normal and it looks like something that you are naturally doing. I think that that's going to be huge. I love that James says, I hate listening to myself, but it's a very good tip to rewatch your video. Thank you, James. I know that it's just, it's so cringy, but it really is so helpful if you take the time to listen, to rewatch, to study what you've done to see where you can improve. I think it's just a huge game changer. I also think a game changer, to Giacomo's point, is going to be AI. I think when it comes to public speaking, that is also going to be something that is huge. I have a friend. She has been on Coffee with Kim before. Maybe we'll have to have her back because she has some new LinkedIn learning courses coming out, but her name is Vanessa Van Edwards. And she actually has an AI software on her website that can help people with presentation skills a little bit, that will help people kind of engage in conversation, probably more useful for like the Q&A part. A lot of times people are like, how do I prepare for Q&A when I don't know what people are going to say? So I love your point, Giacomo. I think that AI is going to be huge when it comes to helping people do trainings, helping people kind of get used to practicing with someone or rewatching someone. I think that that's going to be a game changer for sure. Another question: what made you the most happy during your speeches or during keynotes? And that is by far when you say at the end of a presentation, does anybody have any questions? And then somebody actually asked a question. So I would like to give a little bit of a homework assignment today. And that is, you at some point over the next month, you will witness a webinar, you will witness a presentation in your office, whether that be a sales meeting or a marketing meeting. Maybe you go to a keynote presentation. I know here in Austin, Texas, it's South by Southwest. It's kicking off, which is a big multi-day event here in the city with lots of keynotes and public speakers. They just announced yesterday that Megan, Duchess of Sussex, am I saying that right? Duchess of Sussex is coming here to give the keynote at South by Southwest. So you are going to be in a place where there is somebody on stage or on screen or at the front of the boardroom giving a presentation. And I would like to give you the homework assignment that when that person is done and they say, are there any questions? Raise your hand, ask a question, even if you already know the answer. Like, throw that person a bone and ask them a question, because nothing is worse than when you say, are there any questions? And there's just like crickets and you're so awkward and you don't know what to do and you don't know what to say. So my homework assignment for you is be that helpful person. When somebody says, are there any questions? Raise your hand, kick it off. Ask a question, be helpful, because there is nothing more nerve-wracking than that. It's just, it's so painful. And so I was saying, for the hundreds of people on here that didn't ask a question, we're looking at you. We know you're here with us. We see the numbers, but we know that you're not in the chat. So that's fine. We'll give you grace, but next time we want your tips and tricks. You have to be a part of this too. You're over there in the corner, sitting down, saying nothing. So we want you to talk next time. Again, this has been so much fun and so helpful. I encourage you, if you don't already, to follow me on LinkedIn. You can press that big blue follow button to stay up to date on mini workshops like this, on helpful content, on future Coffee with Kim sessions. Again, because I already know we're going to get asked, this is available on all of your favorite podcast networks, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get podcasts. You just have to search Coffee with Kim. So if you miss a live session, if you want to send this to a friend, if you want to revisit this later, you can revisit it on LinkedIn, you can revisit it on YouTube, you can revisit it on podcast form. Dealer's choice, however you want to revisit it. If you want some additional resources and some additional homework, I have a quick 11-minute course. It's totally free on LinkedIn, and it's called Sharing Your Expertise Online. You can just search LinkedIn Learning for Kim Kalp. Again, it's 11 minutes. It's super quick, but again, it gives you some more bite-sized, fast, quick tips and tricks. So again, if you want more tips and tricks when it comes to public speaking, that is a really great resource for you. And it's free 99, and we love us some free 99. So also a really great thing. You can also always add plants in the audience, as Liz just pointed out. If somebody doesn't ask a question, ask one of your friends to be like, hey, raise your hand, ask me a question. Be a champ. Don't leave me hanging, of course. This was so fun. Thank you. I know you are super busy, so I appreciate you taking the time to join me. If you have any suggestions for future mini workshops, topics that you want to cover, things that make you cringe, I want to help you out. Send me a DM, send me a message on LinkedIn, send me a postcard, however you want to get the information to me. Let me know what you want to see future mini workshops on. We get all of these requests from you. So when we get a lot of messages about public speaking, or when we get a lot of messages about, hey, I'm looking for a job, that's how we curate these workshops. So please, 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 if you have thoughts, if you have frustrations, if you have things that you're struggling with, let us know so that we can curate these mini workshops for you. Thank you so much for your time, friends. Please remember the homework. Raise your hand, be a plant for someone else so that they can shake off their nerves a little bit more. It was so, so wonderful to see you. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. We have some great future sessions coming up. Next Wednesday in particular, we are going to be speaking with Matt Abram all about how to be super confident when you're going into important conversations, whether that's asking for a promotion, whether that's, going in for a client meeting that you're super nervous about. Matt is an expert when it comes to kind of handling these important conversations and how to best navigate. So I'm super excited about that. And then the week after that is my favorite negotiator and lawyer, Kwame Christian. He is awesome when it comes to negotiating, kind of getting what you want, and really speaking confidently about the things that you know are right. So I encourage you to head over to getcoffeewithkim.com so that you can set a reminder in your calendar to join us for the coming weeks, because they're going to be super fun. So thank you so much. It was so good seeing you, and I'll see you next week. Bye.